I'm Larry Greenfield, a fellow at the Claremont Institute and a fellow of the American Freedom Alliance. Conservatives endorse and wish to conserve the founding first principles of our nation. Rule of law, equality of opportunity, private property and free market, democratic capitalism, religious liberty and liberty of conscience, limited government, separation of powers, and the morality and mores of Judeo-Christian civilization. The most important concept of the American experience is natural law philosophy, which asserts that, natural law philosophy, which asserts that individual rights are inherent by virtue of human nature and endowed by God or a transcendent source, and that these rights can be understood universally through human reason. American law is based on these ideas. The individual, made in God's image, has rights which are universal and discoverable by human reason. Equal justice under law is outside the Supreme Court. This simple phrase summarizes the complex legal system which secures individual liberty even while we consent to be governed under state authority. But along came the political left and its impatience with law as the standard by which we would self-rule. Simply by understanding their famous chant, "No justice, no peace," we see their totalitarian impulse. And so the left seeks to ensure that we have no justice and no peace. They instead seek subversion and revolution by any means necessary, such as tearing down or abandoning our legal standards, traditions, wisdom, and methodology of interpreting human rationality. The left is purely interested in its own political and ideological ends, which is always to destroy and never to create. The left does not believe in creation by God, nor in human reason, nor in our individual legal rights. The left believes in destruction of differences and standards, of traditions and institutions, of liberty and law itself. My heart was broken as a lawyer when I watched the O.J. Simpson jury take it upon itself to declare that it didn't matter what happened 1 mile from here to Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. I give you 7 examples of the left and the law. Number 1, the Constitution. Our primary document, and the left, by the way, has no primary written document, is the U.S. Constitution, accepted by the several United States in a federal system meant to respect states' rights and experimentation. So the long project of the left has been to challenge the primacy of our Constitution. Various judges and legal scholars of the left have suggested that the Constitution is not very important and that we should move past it. Others have argued that we have a living Constitution and that judges are not bound by the meaning of the words in the written Constitution. Others want to cite as precedent in court rulings the law from other jurisdictions. By opposing our first principles and our national textual document, which stitch together our union, the left seeks to undermine the respect for a reliable and consistent political order. The left seeks chaos. Note, slavery is never mentioned in the Constitution. And slavery abolition was rooted in religious communities. And under the Constitution's own words, slavery was abolished, formalized in the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. But the left has purposefully misrepresented the 3/5 clause in the Constitution. To avoid domination by the Southern slave states, the Constitution regarded blacks for representation and power in Congress as 3/5 of a person. The left knows this, but asserts that somehow what was meant by the 3/5 clause was that the anti-slavery Northerners were somehow assisting the pro-slavery Southerners. It's illogical. Please remember that the political left supported slavery, the KKK, the Jim Crow laws, racial segregation, hostility to civil rights, and promoted eugenics. The promoters of all of this, including those today who would enforce racial separationism and segregation at university campuses and living quarters and graduations, remain on the left. And now the Democrats running for president promote reparations at the feet of the criminal huckster Al Sharpton. Reparations to people who were never slaves from people who were never slaveholders. Number two, the study of law is done in law schools, which produces our nation's lawyers and judges. An idea. Professors in the academic world throughout the United States work in specific academic areas. Generally, they are told to publish as part of their job. What does one do when one sees 1 million books already published in your area of study? Often the path, therefore, that is chosen is increasingly outrageous, countercultural, fantastical, fanatic, unreasonable books and articles. In many of the nation's law schools, the faculty lack even one conservative scholar. So the left keeps arguing increasingly bizarre and radicalized notions in order to stand out from the dominant crowd in their field of study. In the law, this path of radicalism became known as critical legal studies, which has been all the rage at Harvard and Georgetown, where I earned my law degree. Two leaders there have been Mark Tushnet, now at Harvard, formerly at Georgetown, who famously said, quote, were he asked to decide actual cases as a judge, he would seek to reach results that would advance the cause of socialism. His colleague, Louis Michael Seidman, a constitutional law professor, still at Georgetown, famously wrote in the New York Times, my favorite, on December 30th, 2012, an article entitled, "Let's Give Up on the Constitution." Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the popular and sexy woman of the day in liberal precincts, of course, has been a leading advocate of judicial activism, including her question, quote, why shouldn't we look to the wisdom of judges from abroad? I don't know, something like sovereignty and consent of the governed might be a good answer, Justice. On the left, as an example, in legal argumentation, they seek foreign influence regarding the Eighth Amendment's ban on cruel and unusual punishment, which they bring up against capital punishment or Gitmo prisons holding captured al-Qaeda enemy combatants. The left prefers the wisdom of bureaucrats in Brussels to the morality of the Bible, the constitutional framers, and a couple thousand years of Western civilization. Number three, public interest law firms and even for-profit law firms through their pro bono work. The best example would be the ACLU. Examples. Once upon a time, the ACLU promoted free speech, including even the Nazis marching in Skokie, Illinois, the home to many Holocaust survivors. Today, the ACLU has case selection guidelines which explicitly prioritize social justice agenda over free speech. Or the ACLU which used to support anti-abortion protesters, now opposes anti-abortion protesters having an area of free speech. Or the ACLU, which used to support free speech in campaigns, now endorses campaign finance laws which deny free speech to some. Or finally, the ACLU, which used to support Religious Freedom Restoration Act, now opposes the rights of Christians to decide if they have to produce flowers or pizzas at gay weddings. Number 4, the Imperial Judiciary. The courts reversed the will of the people of California twice on the question of same-sex marriage. The question is who will decide, the people through their popular sovereignty or one gay federal judge. Number 5, the Congress. Both houses of Congress have judiciary committees featuring members, almost always lawyers, which no longer believe in rule of law and the notion that one is presumed innocent until proven guilty. I cite the Kavanaugh hearings where Senator Hirono said so explicitly. Leftists even reject the laws of economics. They dislike companies which charge more than their competitors, calling that greed and gouging. They dislike companies which charge the same as competitors, calling that collusive price fixing. And they dislike companies which charge less than their competitors, calling that dumping and manipulation. Number 6, the administrative agencies. The EPA is the best example. Making puddles of water in your backyard somehow national bodies of water. Or how about the IRS, which flat out used nonprofit 501c3 law to harm organizations, including this one, the American Freedom Alliance. And finally, the left's legal strategy, number 7. In Chicago, we see a state's attorney put in there by George Soros. We know whoever Smollett dealt it. In California, sanctuary cities and states are pure nullification of federal law, not different than what the left did pre-Civil War. The left wants to add new states to our union in order to pack the Senate and the House. They seek to abolish the Electoral College, which stops big states from dominating all the rest of the states. They want to abolish voter ID. They want to empower felon voting and children voting, and in many states now, non-citizen voting. They want to pack the court again, and they even want to deny the president from being on the ballot in 2020. The left in our nation has attacked the Pledge of Allegiance, the Boy Scouts, separate bathrooms, male-female marriage, school prayer, our right to control our own homes, gun ownership, and the ability to choose and keep our doctor. To achieve unachievable perfect equality, the left has decided they will win politically at all costs, promote open borders, abandon constitutional fair play, tilt our law schools, our public interest law firms, our courts, our Congress, and the administrative state toward an ideology inconsistent with the dream of our founders and the American way. Thank you.